There was once someone who did such amazing things and said such wonderful things that people had to ask who he really was. Once when they asked him, he said, "I am the light." I see the love of God in you, the light of Christ comes shining through, and I am blessed to be with you, O holy child of God. The one that said, "I am the light," changed to be in all places at all times. See this light? How it's just in one place? Let's change the light. Look, the light's changed. It's growing. It's getting bigger. It's becoming invisible. It's filling the room with the light of Christ. As you go about this room today, know that the light is there. And when you leave the room today, know that you take the light of Christ with you wherever you go. Watch carefully so you always know where to find today's lesson. You have to be ready. Wait, something's missing. Oh. Now we're ready. This is the story of Elijah, the prophet. Prophets are people who come so close to God, and God comes so close to them that they know what God wants. When the people do not like the message, they often become very angry with the prophet. It's not easy being a prophet. There was once a king called Ahab who ruled over Israel. He married a woman called Jezebel from a different land. She persuaded Ahab to worship her god, a god called Baal. Ahab even built a temple and placed a statue of Baal in it. He told the Israelites to bow down and worship Baal. God sent the prophet Elijah to warn the king there would be little rain for the next 3 years because the people were not following God's laws and worshiping Baal. This made the king very angry, and Elijah had to go into hiding. Elijah went to live in the valley of Kerith, where there were running brooks. Morning and night, God sent ravens to feed him with bread and meat. And so, with both food and water, Elijah was able to stay alive. Still, there was no rain in the land. So the brook dried up, and Elijah journeyed to the town called Zarephath. In Zarephath, Elijah met a woman gathering sticks for a fire. He asked her for water and bread. The woman told him that all she had was a little bit of flour and oil to make the bread, just enough to feed herself and her son. This would be their last meal. Elijah told her to trust in God, and if she fed him just a small piece of her bread, the family would never go hungry again. The woman did as Elijah asked, and the promise came true. She was able to feed Elijah and her son for many, many days. 3 years passed, and Elijah returned to speak with the king. Ahab was still very angry with Elijah, but he listened because there had been no rain. Elijah told the king to gather all the priests of Baal. There were 450 of them. The people gathered around them. Elijah said, "You need to choose. Would you worship Baal or the one true God?" 2 altars were built. When everything was ready for the sacrifice, Elijah said, "Pray for your God, and I will pray for mine, and we will see which one sends down fire to light the offering." The priests of Baal prayed and prayed all day for the fire to come. They danced around their altar, but nothing happened. Elijah taunted them. "Shout louder. Maybe your God is thinking, maybe he's just too busy. Perhaps he's on vacation. I know, maybe he's asleep and you need to wake him up." The prophets of Baal shouted louder and louder, but nothing happened. Finally, it was evening. Elijah called the people to him. He placed 12 stones one for each of the tribes of Israel, all around God's altar. He dug a deep trench around the altar. He prepared the sacrifice, and when everything was ready, water was poured over the altar. The trench was filled with and overflowing. Then Elijah prayed to God. Fire fell from the heavens and burnt up the offering and dried up all the water. The people fell to their knees, saying, "The Lord is God." And then it began to rain. King Ahab and his wife, Jezebel, were now even angrier with Elijah. So he had to run for his life and hide in the holy mountain. There he found a cave and went inside to sleep. In the night, he thought he heard God calling to him. "What are you doing, Elijah?" Elijah answered, "I have done everything you asked of me, but the people do not expect that you are the one true God, and they've killed your prophets. I'm the only one left. They're trying to kill me too." God said, "Go out and stand on the mountain. I will come to you." A powerful wind blew around the mountain, so strong that it smashed the rocks as it passed. But God was not in the wind. An earthquake shook the ground, shattering it. But God was not in the earthquake. A raging fire burned everything in its path, but God was not in the fire. Then, sheer silence. When Elijah heard He wrapped his cape around him and stood at the mouth of the cave. He heard a still, small voice and knew it was God. God told him to go back to the people, so he did. Ahab and Jezebel died, but he was a prophet in the land of Israel for the rest of his days. When Elijah was about to die, he and his friend Elisha were together. Elisha wanted to inherit a double share of the Spirit of God that God rested on Elijah. Elijah said, "If you are to see me as I am taken from you by God, then your request will be granted." As they were speaking, it was as if a chariot of fire appeared with horses made of fire, and the two men were separated. Elisha watched as Elijah was taken up into the heavens in a whirlwind. He knew God's Spirit was with him, and the people knew too. And Elisha became a great prophet. I wonder what part of the story you like best. I wonder which part of the story is most important. I wonder where you see yourself in this story. I wonder, is there anything that we can take away and still have everything that we need for the story? I wonder, will you think of this story today? Or maybe another story. But whatever you do today, know that the light of Christ is with you wherever you go.